everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Live. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful Monday. It is great that we get to start the week together. So, thank you so much to all of you for your support, no matter where it is that you're joining us around the world. Thank you, as always, for making My EdTech Live what it is today. We appreciate all the likes, the shares, the follows. Thank you so much for all the wonderful reviews. Thank you so much for all the great comments and just for really subscribing to our content, guys. Thank you so much for all those listens and just continue downloading these wonderful episodes. As you know, we do what we do for you. And I promise you that at our website and all the episodes, you're definitely going to find something specifically for you that you can take some knowledge nuggets from and sprinkle them onto what you are already doing great. And I am excited to be here with you all today because we have an amazing guest with an amazing story. And I am really excited to dive in. So I would love to welcome to the show this evening, Mr. Srinjay Verma, who is joining us. Srinjay, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me on.
Oh, I am doing great. Thank you so much for hopping on my EdTech Live today. And I'm really excited for our audience members to get to connect with you, know who you are, hear your story, and hear about the work that you're doing. That for myself, hearing or actually seeing the news or the article that you shared with me, and then of course listening to a podcast that you were on, and this is amazing. So I'm really excited for you to share and connect with my audience, and hopefully they'll definitely be connecting with you and as we amplify your story today. So Srinjay, let's go ahead and dive in. So just to go ahead and get us started, Srinjay, I would love for you to give us a little brief introduction and what your context is within, the, I guess, entrepreneur space. So tell us a
Yeah,
little bit about yourself.
yeah, sounds good. My name is Srinjay Verma, like you just mentioned. I studied computer engineering in college. I'm a recent graduate. I just recently graduated, just last couple months ago. And yeah, so I mean, when I was in college, there was a really big need for coming out of the pandemic. A lot of students on campus when I was in college were having a hard time buying and selling items on campus. And so my friend and I were thinking about how can we facilitate this in a way that's a little bit different, and you can trust the people who are going to be buying and selling these items on campus. And so we created a platform. We didn't call it Buzly back then, but we created a platform for students to basically buy and sell items similar to like Facebook Marketplace or something like Craigslist, but something a little bit more safe and inclusive for the college community that we were in. Um, yeah, and then basically from there, we realized as students were buying and selling items on our platform that a lot of students actually just wanted to talk and actually connect with one another and really build some connections. And there's a really big need for a deep sense of connection and really a sense of community when it comes down to it. And so we saw that there was this need. We talked to students who were using our platform, and they were all saying, hey, you should add like a chat. I would love to be able to kind of connect with other people who I'm buying and selling items from. And so that's when we ended up turning the platform into something that's a lot more focused on how can we facilitate student to student connection on campus, and really deliver a sense of belonging when we're looking at students on campus, and how we can do that. So that's a little bit about like the little background of kind of how Buzly got started and its origin story. And since then we've gone into a couple different areas using that community that we can dive into later. But that's a little spiel in the beginning.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, congratulations on graduating. Can you let us know what school it is that you graduated from and maybe with what degree?
Yeah, so I graduated from computer engineering from Sacramento State University,
Okay.
California State University, Sacramento. And our platform, won a couple of different awards around the nation for this exact purpose of connecting students together. So that's a little bit about me.
Oh, excellent. Well, congratulations on that again. And I love what you stated, that you found a problem in the sense of, okay, you wanted to create kind of like a marketplace, and you had all that idea, those ideas and that plan, and you're putting it into practice, but then you took some of that feedback that many of your users were saying, and really they just wanted that genuine connection to chat with somebody and so on. So let me ask you first, what was that feeling like of having a product or a plan and putting it out there to do something like like a marketplace, but then all of a sudden now turning into something else? What was your initial response there?
Well, that's a good question. I think for us, it was really we were looking at how can we better serve our peers, and so it all came back down to really serving the student body that was using our platform, and how can we give them a better experience. And if that was providing a ability for them to communicate with one another, for them to find out other people in their major, for them to connect based off of interests and hobbies, we really wanted to facilitate that. And so that's when we initially we were like a little concerned, like, oh, these students are using it in a totally different way than we expected. But it turned out to be, we kind of followed what the users were saying and followed what students were saying about the platform and what they wanted to do. And so that's when we, kind of pivoted and went a little bit closer to that community side. And even now we're seeing a lot of our students and actually higher education professionals now wanting to use the platform to drive enrollment at universities through the platform itself, through conversions of connecting prospective and current students together prior to them coming on campus. So it's very interesting to kind of see the really the timeline and the changes that had to be made in the platform to better serve the students, like you were saying, and other individuals who want to use it.
That is great. And that's so important now that you mentioned this, because, as far as products, you can start off with one product, but you also have to have, and like yourself, I'm sure, as you came up with the platform and working together with your team, you definitely have to have an ability to improvise, adapt, and overcome. Like I said, you were going for something, and then based on your user feedback, you went ahead and adapted to that, and now you've overcome that great in a great way, where now you're getting some great attention, and like you mentioned, not only from the student body, but actually the higher education, or higher ed, I should say, and the institutions that are wanting to use your product to drive more enrollment, and like you mentioned, making those connections, which is so important, which kind of brings me to the next question, as far as how does your platform, if you can let us know a little bit, enhance that sense of community and belonging amongst the student body? How did that come about, and what are you doing within your platform to continue to grow that and making those connections?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when the biggest things when we look at the landscape as a whole, when we're looking at tons of different social media outlets and applications that are out there, a lot of times students are falling short when it comes to being able to connect with that next peer or individual or major person on campus that's right next to them. And so that's a very interesting paradigm when we're looking at that. And so for us, what we do in our platform is we help students connect by major. We also have students connect by hobbies, as well as students connecting by create groups that they create that may not be official clubs on campus, but similar to like a Reddit page or maybe like a Twitter following page. Students can create these subtopics within the platform that really niche down onto what students in that institution are really interested in. And that's really what really makes us unique, is we customize down, really focusing on the student side a lot versus other platforms, and we kind of focusing a lot more on how can we help the higher education market as a whole. But we really super focused hard on student centric, and we wanted to stay that way because we felt like the platform as a way to connect with one another and really build those connections. And think of it, students describe us as a mix between like Twitter, LinkedIn, and Reddit, because they have the ability to connect with someone on a professional level, but also the ability to create a subtopic like a Reddit page, for example, on our platform, and still get that same level of engagement that they may not get other places as well.
That's great. And so that is wonderful in how you are offering all of that. And again, for many of us, there's so much social media. And I love that you mentioned how you are differentiating yourself from so many other platforms that are there that's really, created a hub. And like, I just want to reiterate what you said. You can reach out to somebody at a professional level. You can go ahead and create a thread and kind of niche down to a specific subset of people that have the same, commonalities, some of the same likes, maybe the same dislikes, whatever it is, you're going to be able to find somebody there, build that sense of community. And I think that's something that is very important and really all encompassing. And especially because you have that higher ed institution piece there, which I think is something that's very important. So now that you mentioned that, let's talk about how higher ed institutions have now found your platform, and tell us a little bit as far as what you mean, as for our audience members that may not be familiar with the terminology, as far as like conversions and what, how they're using your platform maybe to for enrollment and really piquing student interest in their institutions.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I know there's a lot of terminology and vernacular that's put out there, so I think it's a great point that you bring it up. So yeah, so the way that higher education professionals are really using our platform are in two ways. So we have two subset of products that we have. One is the Buzly community piece, which we kind of just talked about. We also have something called Buzly Champion Chat, which helps prospective and current students connect together. And the cool thing about these two products is the community and the champion chat is something that can be integrated together. So what we've seen is that students maybe are super excited to join our community. For example, at one of our partner institutions, they have 27,000 total students. They have about 14,000 students using the platform daily. And so students are super excited, maybe even hearing about the college because they want to get access to this community. And so the way that the institutions are particularly using it is they're using it to generate interest and buzz and generate leads for coming to their institution, college, coming to the university. And on the connection side with the champion chat, we help the prospective students and the current students match together through our platform. So it's really great in that it's a web and a mobile based version where you can really connect those prospective students with the current students and the current students with other current students on campus. So it's really a whole ecosystem when you look at it, and how the education professionals have been using it. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, no, and I think that that is so important, and especially now more so than ever, as far as access to higher education. There are many students that are definitely getting ready or they're already in college. But I think for myself, working in the K-12 space, what I see Buzly being is again that introduction to that institution. So, for example, let's say that you may not be able to do a full on college visit. However, the platform allows you as a prospective student to connect with either a current student or connect with somebody there at the institution to be able to get some information, to be able to see like, hey, is this going to be the right fit for me? And I think that's so important, as really you are marketing your higher ed institution. You want to sell to those students, but obviously sometimes that product may not be what they're looking for. But this is a great way for the student to also see, hey, if this is the right fit, I definitely want to go there. But that they have access to an actual current student and really ask those questions like, hey, what is college life like? What are some of the areas that are around? What does a typical day for you look like? And things of that sort, where they can make those educated decisions and be able to say, hey, what? Yes, let's go on, let's continue. Or, what? Maybe let's find another choice and so on. And that is wonderful. I love the fact that students have access to that. And especially, like I mentioned to you, there might be some students that may not be able to travel, and do a full on-site college visit to ask those questions. So this is great. And the fact that that you can have a professor or somebody there at that higher ed institution answer those questions too as well for a student. This is wonderful. So I'm loving the progression of this. And I'm still in awe. Like I said, the fact that you started off with one idea and there was a pivot, and now we're seeing that growth, and you just found just a wonderful kind of landing space that is providing so much value to the institution and also to future prospective students. So that is amazing. So let me ask you, as far as the impact for students at for the university experience, those students that have used your platform, Buzly, to make those connections, can you tell us a little bit, maybe, or share some experiences that they may have had, or some of the feedback that they have given you, that in that positive way that has really helped them make those decisions, or maybe just find a nice community group that they can belong to while they're there?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And with one of our partner institutions that we've been working with really strongly with, we've seen that students have basically been saying this is the best, this is the best reason to come to this institution is because of this platform. And like testimonials like those, you really can't make up. Those are things that just basically it's great to it's pretty amazing to just to see that students are so loving the platform so much to say that this is one of the biggest reasons why they love coming to this institution. We've also seen some really interesting things, stories where students have found potentially significant others on the platform. Students have been using it to find resources on campus. One student shared a story with us, how she was potentially thinking about actually dropping out of college, but actually, because she was able to find her a really good mentor on the platform, she ended up staying in college. And she said, without that mentor that she met through the platform, she probably wouldn't have been able to get through her major. And so, stories like those really push me to continue to build the platform out and really focus on how we can help more partner institutions. Just for reference, we have like about 14,000 active students at one of our partner universities using the platform daily. And it's also really great because universities are able to start to track this data and really start to see, how many of these students are retaining throughout their 4 years, and how was the community been a big part of that, and how can we showcase that. So that's been really, really amazing too. And I think students have, it's almost taking a life of its own at the partner institutions that we've partnered with. And that's what you really want when you're trying to launch a community platform in an institution. You want this to be student led. You want students to be sharing this on their own. And so that has really, really been the response, has been students have been sharing this on their Instagram story, sharing this with friends. Most people, universities or institutions, will be like, you need to download this, we're telling you to download this. We have the exact opposite effect, where students are the ones saying, you need to try this, like, right now. This is really great. This is awesome.
That is great. Well, I want to ask a question here. We have Amanda Macias who's joining us. Thank you so much, Amanda, who's joining us live. She had a question. She asked if the institutions that you currently work with, are there any that are global institutions, or all these institutions just here within the US?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're actually beta testing with two universities in Poland right now. And it's a totally different market than we're normally used to in the United States, but they seem to be having the very similar problems as well. And we've seen that they're really looking for a sense of community and really looking for different ways to, again, increase that enrollment, since that's a really big piece right now. So we're beta testing with two universities in Poland. We're right now, as we're like changing it up a little bit to fit that market and to fit those institutions. One thing we're really great and really happy about at Buzly is that we try to tailor and customize and make it very specific to each institution partner that we work with. Since we don't work with almost any partner, we very selective in the institutions that we kind of partner with. We do that on purpose to be able to sort of, kind of serve them the best that we can and really customize the platform to what they're looking for.
Great. Now, let me ask you, as far as institutions within the United States, how many institutions has Buzly partnered with up until this point?
Yeah, up until this point, we've been speaking to about 4 to 5 institutions about different ways to implement this year. We should be implementing at about 3 new partner institutions, and that ranges from community college all the way up to 4 years. So when you're looking at it, this can be really applied to community college, 4-year institutions. We have one partner who's a career technical partner as well, and they want to use it for online communities as well. So there's a lot of different applications for our technology, but again, we're really focused on how can we serve those institution partners the best that we possibly can, and that's why we're so selective in the process that we put together.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. And Amanda says thank you for sharing that too as well. The information how you are beta testing, with some universities outside of the United States. But like you mentioned, it's wonderful that you're getting such great feedback. And slowly, like you mentioned, it's really the students that have been the ones that have been advocating for you and sharing the great work that you're doing because they have found that added value that they're sharing how much more they wish that other students would be able to experience that and taking it to the institutions themselves. So, kind of with that, I want to ask you, how has the student access or how has student access contributed to building the trust and security within the community at within Buzly?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the biggest things that we really have to make sure early on that this was a safe and inclusive environment, and that's the number one priority over everything. And I think a lot of other platforms in our space aren't always as diligent about doing this, and that's where we really come into play. We really make sure that each community, because it is really a community, is really dictated by the sets of values that each institution really has, because each institution is different. And when we look at that, we want to see how can we, and the students themselves are, tend to be our biggest moderators. We have AI and things like that. But at the end of the day, it really is those student-led, it's a very student-led platform. So how the students are directing the platform is really, what is really how we do moderation and how we kind of handle making it a very safe and inclusive environment. We also work with the partner institutions to kind of build in some, different guidelines in place that kind of fit those values for each college. But again, overarchingly, like you mentioned, it is a majority of it is students.
Wonderful. And and that kind of you kind of went into the next question because I was going to ask, when you're working with institutions, you mentioned a little bit that they all have maybe a tailored approach for each one, So I want to ask, is that something on within your side as far as the programming and things of that sort? Because, since we know Buzly, so you're able to cater to those specific needs for the campuses. And does each campus have access to their own portal, or is it just open like Buzly's open to, everybody as long as you're on the platform, you can chat with anybody from any other universities as well? How does that work if you don't mind sharing?
That's a great question. So how we have it set up is that each institution has an exclusive community built, tailor-made and specific for each campus. And the reason why we do it that way is, we really want to leverage, hey, like I want Buzzy at my school, but we want Buzzy for your specific institution. How can we tailor that experience for them? Um, so each of our partner institutions have a dashboard and a portal which they can access their secure student data and be able to see those different insights and the different connections that are being made on the platform, as well as the students themselves. The students themselves also have a very exclusive experience as well. And the reason why we did that is we want Buzzy to expand out to other campuses for sure, but we really want to kind of be very controlled in the way that we do that so that it stays safe and exclusive. And really, again, super specific and tailor made for each campus.
Perfect. Well, going back to that, kind of getting back to my K to 12, um, what we always say in K to 12, and I'm pretty sure it's not just in K to 12, but since I work in central office, it's always like data drives decisions. So I want to ask you, as far as metrics are concerned, when you're working with a partner institution and you're tailoring the platform to meet their specific needs, what kind of metrics do they get as far as engagement, things of that sort, to help them make better decisions as far as what they can offer, what they can do to adapt to what the students are needing? So do you mind sharing a little bit about that as far as what they get in return? So that way,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, students can feel comfortable stating, what, I am in the right place.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of data that we can collect, and we're very intentional about the way and informing students about which data we're collecting and how we're sharing it, and where we're sharing it. And the reason we do that is so that students feel safe to share whatever they want to share. But on the dashboard side for each partner institution, institutions can basically see we have something called push notifications, where different colleges within a large university can send information to students, so they can start to get different receive rates and push notification rates as to how many students are opening up those notifications and how many students are engaging with them. Because our platform has so much engagement, a lot of times those rates are a lot higher than Instagram or TikTok, where you're kind of fighting for for attention from everyone else. We've also seen we also have a place on our platform where students can kind of share how they're feeling. So each day, students on their post, they can share, I'm feeling down, or I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling stressed. And so that's some really wealth of data where we can start to see, like, on a campus level, what is the campus consciousness kind of really looking for, today or this week or even this month, and how can we better support them in that sense. And the third thing that we have that's really important is actually the number of messages that have been sent between students. How many connections have been made between students on campus, between clubs and organizations, and also between different subtopics. So we have a subtopic called financial aid, where we can start to see, how many students are engaging this financial aid topic, and are there ways that we can kind of jump in there and start sharing some information, some resources. So we've seen, we have a couple of different, dashboard metrics that we can start to see. That's on the community side. On the champion chat side, our other product, the prospective and current students, we can start to see the types of questions that students are asking when they're thinking about coming to college, where they're coming from, potentially, if they've been admitted into the college, what kinds of questions are they really looking for, and are they at risk of potentially not submitting an intent to enroll, or maybe they are, so we can really start to pull that data using, and even all those different conversations that happen between current students and prospective students, we're able to pull with AI, a quick little synopsis and share that with our partner institutions and enrollment teams at partner institutions, so that they can start to see, oh, what's the top level, what's the most important questions that students are asking, and how can we drill down on that.
That is great. And that is so useful for the institution. Like, it's really, institutions now with so many that are out there and doing so many great things, you have to really set yourself apart, even if it's just by program. And so I know from my example, I mean, I know that this wasn't around yet, but I know that when I made my choice to pursue my master's, the only reason that I did my master's with the program that I was in was because I was able to actually get a response from the professor, and the professor took his time on a Saturday morning to call me and let me know and answer all my questions, gave me all the information. And then I had emailed other institutions, about their program. I never got a reply. I want to say maybe I could have just maybe not sent it to the right person, but I sent the email out. But that makes a huge difference. So even like you're mentioning all of these metrics, those every little bit that you're getting, especially I love the synopsis too about, with prospective students, with current students, to be able to see like, hey, what is it that they're seeking. Getting some of that information is enormous, and it can pay off in dividends by just making some slight changes and slight tweaks, making the environment better there within the university, providing the programs can make a big difference. And also that connection, which kind of brings me to the next question that I want to ask you, as far as building that authentic connection, what have been your observations with making, like you mentioned, you gave the little story about the mentor student, but also how about connections within the professors, and then connections with the institution overall? Can you share maybe a couple of little great stories or success stories about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we look at like you mentioned, peer mentorship, right? I mean, that's a big piece of what our platform can help facilitate. There's a lot of research around peer mentorship and the benefits of it, and so we thought, how can we leverage, how can we leverage a lot of these programs that are already existing at institutions and use them in a new way to actually, increase enrollment and drive enrollment. But also, like you mentioned, that the student connection, really building it on an overarching level, and how can we really start to facilitate that. And the way that we think about it is that, students really care about what their peers say, so what other students are saying. And so a lot of times it's a domino effect. If you have 3 or 4 students undergraduate on the undergraduate side saying one thing about an institution, you can really start to leverage that in a positive way, to really increase enrollment at your university on an undergraduate level. And then you just mentioned, right, like your personal example of like a graduate program. Tons of graduate programs out there, a lot of great executive MBA programs, and different graduate programs. But how do you differentiate yourself? And the way that we think about it is, you should leverage your best students. That's the best way you can do that, is leveraging your best students at your institution, the great things that they're doing. So really facilitating that one-to-one connection, matching prospective students with those current students, finding someone who maybe looks like them, finding someone who might be can see themselves in that role later on in life. That's exactly how we do the graduate program matching. And then also, like, what you also mentioned, which is professors, right? I mean, a lot of times professors really want to engage with potential students, and so our platform also helps with that. I mean, you can go on our platform and say, maybe I want to talk to a professor of business, or maybe I want to find out about the major in biology, and really start to sort this down by, how is this going to help me as a student, and really start to build that one-on-one connection. We've seen when you send about 3 to 5 messages between between two connections, you're able to start to build a real authentic friendship and even connection that you would not have otherwise. And that's really how our partner institutions are using this platform, is to really start to get really in depth, and start to convert those students over, because they're building that real friendship. Because at the end of the day, you want to talk to somebody real at your institution, and you want to get the insider's view of it. You don't want to find out, hey, these are all the marketing materials that my institution's been sending out. I want to find out, is this the right institution for me? And the best way to do that is by talking to someone through our platform.
Yeah, absolutely. You've hit on so many great things, and especially the representation part. We talked a little bit about this, pre-chat, and I think it's so important, for in anywhere, any school district, wherever it is that you may be from, and then you have students that are getting college ready. It is so important for them to be able, like you mentioned, to make that authentic connection, and seeing somebody that looks like them, or somebody that said, "Wow, look at the major. Look at the major that they're in. I never thought that I could do that." And it's something that is inspirational too as well. So now I know that I'm bringing in the K-12 space in there. So when we talk about prospective students, so then that means that Buzly is available to up and coming graduates from high school to be able to connect with institutions. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So, like, if you're just graduated from college, I'm sorry, from high school, you're probably thinking, which college do I need to go to? How can I go through that? Some of our partner institutions who have partnered with our platform, you can actually ask questions to current students in college right now. You can ask them, hey, are you're a biology major? Why did you choose that? Am I going to have time for sororities or fraternities? All these different types of questions that someone coming out of high school has. You can use our platform to get that realistic answer from a current student on campus with our partner institutions. We're working on a new feature right now, so for those students who maybe or the institutions who haven't partnered with us just yet, we can start to build in a list of those current students who are at these universities, to start to match with those prospective students like you mentioned. So, but if you're coming out of high school and you're trying to figure out, oh my gosh, all these colleges are sending me tons and tons of emails, I don't know which one to go to. Take a look at Buzly and see, using this as a tool in your toolbox, as to maybe I should talk to somebody from one of these universities and get a good understanding before I go there. Do I actually want to make a commitment to go to the university? Because
Yeah,
it really is a
absolutely.
commitment. Look at it.
Yes, absolutely. Not only like a commitment of your time, but obviously monetarily, it's definitely going to be a commitment there too as well. But and that's so great. And you mentioned, also the piece of authentic, just connections, and we're going back to that. Finding somebody that has your same experience, maybe a similar background, or just by talking to somebody, you figure out like, wow, hey, we have a lot of in common, and being able to answer those questions. I truly believe, with this, once you land in that space, you have that friend, you have that connection that can help you through. And I think that is very important, because many times students may be going to a university also because and this is something that I've seen in my experience where there'll be a little group of friends that decide to go to the same university and they're like, hey, we're going to stick it through and we're going to go there. But then once they get there freshman year, it's like, boom, they all go their separate ways. And then all of a sudden, some of them may not maybe find their niche or actually make that connection because the only connection they had to that university was really within that group, and now that connection isn't there, which again we talked about having that, making that commitment, and now you may feel like, oh my gosh, I might have made a mistake. But now with Buzly, it's like even before that you can say, hey, let me reach out to some other people and really go deep and be able to make those connections, not only like we mentioned to mentor students, but also the professors, and really getting to know how the institution is and what they offer. That's huge in making that decision, and I absolutely love that. And yeah, there you go. Sorry about that. We kind of lost a little bit of signal there on my end. As going back to the connection piece and component, you talked about obviously social media and just how competitive it is, and just how competitive it is. And of course you as Buzly also within that competition, even though it may be a different niche, because like we talked about, it's for higher ed institutions, still making that connection within students. What have been maybe some of your barriers, or maybe, or how you've overcome some of those barriers to really kind of bring yourself out from the pack of all the other social media that is out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we look at it, you're right. There's everyone's fighting for attention nowadays, and how do you get that? One thing that we've seen is that with our partner institutions, we really help them develop a strong plan of how to deliver this platform out to their students. And we're highly confident that we can get half of your campus within the first 4 weeks of launching. And the way that we do this is very student led. So we really focus on how can we have the students who are at university be the champions and be the people who are really sharing it with other people at the university. And so when we look at it from like an overarching lens of the competitive landscape of all these different social medias, students want to be part of something, right? A lot of students who are at a university end up really wanting to be a part of something bigger than them. And it's even better when their own institution has a student-led application that provides them a community of other people. So what we've seen is when we're looking at it from a competitive landscape point of view, we really niche down on how can we better mesh with that partner institution, with their branding, with their logo, whatever that might be. If you're the Cougars, we really customize down and really niche down. Okay, how can we make, Buzly for Cougars the best Buzly at your partner institution, and focusing really hard on being intentional about who our audience is, right? I think a lot of times when we put stuff out on social media, we're maybe not being as intentional as we should be. And that's where I think, using things like Buzly, you can really, be very intentional about how you can harness that and garner that community on your campus.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, now as we kind of start wrapping up here our show, just want to ask you a couple more questions. And as far as where you see Buzly going, as far as expanding and catering to other institutions, based on what the institutions that you've already partnered with, what has been something that you've noticed that you're like, okay, we need to go ahead and expand this piece to continue to grow? So yeah, let us know a little bit about that vision that you have of taking Buzly to that next level.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we look at the higher education landscape, we see a lot of different platforms that are out there, a lot of different options. And so what we focused on is how can we provide a campus specific, tailor specific for our institutions that are partnered with us. That is that level of experience is a lot different than potentially other platforms. And so what we wanted to do is we wanted to see how can we start to really bring in more prospective students who potentially might be coming onto the platform and connecting them with current students. So when I look at the landscape, I look at it and I see, how can we use our matching platform to be a lot more intentional about who we match and how we match them. And once they are matched, how can we continue that connection, not to once they've enrolled into the campus, but also to help retain them throughout those maybe 2 or 4 years at that institution, and how can we, kind of collapse that into one platform. So for us, we're trying to see how can we really build that ecosystem where, students come in with our platform, and with prospective students looking at potentially different institutions to partner with, to go to. Then once they've enrolled, how can we help them join and find their people in college, in the community, and then how can we get them out? And so when I look at it from that perspective, we really see the vision of being a platform where students can come in and really get that one-to-one connection, but also continue that connection, make great connections, friendships throughout college, and then also have them eventually graduate, right? So that's how we see the platform going. And for us, as we expand to other institutions, or right now we're being a very, kind of specific with who we want to partner with, just so that we can provide the highest level of service, both for our students who are going to be using the platform, but also for our institutions, and really helping them with their goals, if that, whether that be enrollment or retention. We really can, partner with them in a unique way. And I think some of our previous campus partners have said that's been one of the highlights of the platform, is being able to specify down and help them achieve their goals that they're interested in, versus just being a kind of like a one and done platform.
Nice, excellent. And my last question to you is the following. As the creator of Buzly, how do you envision the evolution of EdTech in facilitating engaging learning communities?
That's a great question. And I think that's a question that a lot more people need to be asking, is how are we going to be able to do this, on a long-term basis? Because as we look at the nature of not just social media, but the world right now, there's a huge push for students who are very lonely, a loneliness epidemic that's going on, as well as communities being the number one way that students and also people in general are kind of getting together. So as we're seeing this trend, kind of go up, how can, in higher education, how can we start to adapt to these changes that are happening? And I think Buzly is one of those ways to do it. But I also think that, with the ways that, communities are kind of being, how creative communities are created, they're created by people, and they're created by students, and they're created by those a couple of different people who are on in that community. And so how can we empower those people in the community to do the best job, whether that be students at a partner institution, or whether that be somebody who's like in a cooking group and really wants to, really to do that, or maybe that's somebody who's a first gen, community, in a first gen community, and really trying to get other people in first gen. So I think when we look at it from that perspective, the way that we can, really focus on that is by empowering the people who are creating the communities to then leverage that for whatever other goals that an institution might have, or other people might have in general. Because I think the power of community is super powerful when it's harnessed in the right way.
Absolutely. I am with you 100%. I am definitely all about community, and community can make a huge difference and a huge impact. And just like you mentioned, even through Buzly, what you've shared with me so far also is just hearing just that authentic community, people that want to be within that space, people that are helping other people within that space. And obviously the higher education, higher ups taking part and of that community as well is a huge game changer. And I love to see that, how higher education is being more open and getting outside the box and adapting to what is out there now. And like you mentioned, everybody's fighting for attention, and now they see that they themselves have to put themselves out there, maybe a little bit out of their comfort zone. But again, you're seeing just the growth within that community and how this can help your particular institution in very specific ways. And I absolutely love it. I want to give a shout out to my friend Oscar, who joined us too as well. He says, very interesting platform. First time hearing about it. Great question. So thank you so much, Oscar, for joining us. I really appreciate you. So make sure that you do check out Buzly. The website is right here, guys, and it'll definitely be on the show notes as well. Well, it has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here this evening, Srinjay. Thank you. I appreciate it. But before we go, hopefully, I know I put these questions in there in our calendar invite, and I always love to end the show with the following three questions. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and dive in to those three questions. All right. So question number one, we all know that every superhero has a weakness, and we know that Superman's weakness was kryptonite. So as kryptonite, drew closer to him, he just kind of weakened and had just this bodily response of maybe just something painful, something that just weakened him. So I want to ask you, within the current state of, maybe we'll talk about higher education, because this is your space, the space that you are currently doing work in. What would you say would be your current higher ed kryptonite?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that question, how it's phrased. I'm a huge comic book fan, so I get the whole kryptonite and Superman thing. But I would say the biggest kryptonite in higher ed right now is actually, I think it's siloed communities. I think it's the fact that different departments in higher education are all doing work, again, for the end of this day, it's the student, but a lot of times they're so siloed, and it's really difficult for them to, um, even if they want to work together, to always, kind of be on the same page with things and collaborate. And which we end up with is a bunch of competing interests for the same end goal. So I think that was probably higher education's biggest weakness right now. So I think if people are looking to innovate, that's probably a good place to look. Is, how can you help, those siloed communities not be so siloed.
There you go. Wonderful. And you know what? That's not a problem that's just in higher ed. I promise you, that is a problem that is also in the K to 12 space as well. That everybody's working in silos. So if we can, I agree with you 100%. If we can open up those doors and really see how the value that we can add in a cross curricular way can make a huge difference and a huge impact for our student body, but also even for our institutions, and kind of reshaping and rethinking and being innovative within those education spaces. So thank you so much for sharing that. Question number two. All right. Question number two would be, or is, if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Oh, that's an interesting one. That's a good question. I think it would be. That's a really good question. I think I might have had to come back to you on that one. But I think, okay, so for a billboard, um, I would say, okay, so for me, I think the thing that I would put on a billboard is don't look down, look up. And the reason why I would say that is because a lot of times people, just this is more so like just in general, people look down rather than looking up. And I think that if more people looked up in life, they would be a lot more. They would see a lot more opportunity, and there's a lot more ability for you to kind of help others if you're looking up rather than looking down. So that's what I would put on a billboard if I had the opportunity.
That is great. That is a really great, solid answer. I love it. Don't look down, look up. Absolutely. All right. That is definitely a great soundbite for sure. All right. And the last question. The last question is this: if you had to start to write a book tomorrow, what would it be about?
That's a great question. These are all amazing questions. I keep saying that, but these are all amazing questions. I would say if I had to write a book tomorrow, it would be on the power of saying yes. Power of saying yes. I think throughout my entire life, up until this point, I'm still pretty young, but up until the power of saying yes is so it's so powerful. And I think if people spent more time saying yes to things, they would find themselves in new and interesting positions that they may never even believe that they could even go to. So I think, yeah, if I had to write a book, I would write it on the power of saying yes and where the word yes can take you. That's not to say don't say no to things. For sure, say no to things, but say yes to a lot more things that fit with your core values and what you're interested in life. And that's probably what I write a book on, is power of saying yes.
Excellent. Great answer. Definitely a lot of power in that. Srinjay, it has been an amazing conversation. And again, just to add, because you did say, you are young, you are 23, and that is amazing too as well. So I definitely wanted to share that too, because for our audience members that are listening, if you are educated, I mean, they're all educators for the most part too as well, but please make sure that you share this with your student communities and letting them know what can be possible if you just continue to look up and also harness the power of saying yes. You might be able to have opportunities and doors open up and just be and persevere, just like Srinjay has done with Buzly and the work that he is doing and continues to do with partnering up with higher institutions to create amazing communities, not only within that higher ed institution, but also at the granular level with the professors and also within students. So making authentic connections, needless to say. So, Srinjay, thank you so much for just this inspiring conversation. I love your passion. I love your drive. I love what you're doing and what you're accomplishing at not only your young age, but also just, within the time span that Buzly has been around. Continue doing what you're doing. We definitely need more amazing innovators such as yourself. And so I continue to wish you the best in everything and all things that you do. And hopefully, as we continue to hear that you're expanding globally, I would definitely love to invite you back to our show, as that's one of the perks of being a guest, is that once you're a guest, you always have an open invite. So at any time, whether it's, some big news, some more updates, whatever the case is, you are more than welcome to just reach out to me, shoot me a DM. We'll make it happen. I would definitely love to have you back and see, how you've grown, maybe within the next 3 months, 5 months, or maybe within the next year or so. But again, thank you so much for your time this evening and all your wonderful shares. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much for having me. I love the podcast. Love what you're doing.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much. Appreciate it. And thank you all for those of you that are catching this on the replay, listening to it on Spotify or your favorite podcast player. Please make sure that you visit our website at myedtech.life, myedtech.life, where you can check out this amazing episode or the other 242 wonderful episodes where, like I mentioned earlier, I promise you will find something specifically for you that you might be looking for from our wonderful educators, entrepreneurs, edupreneurs, and education practitioners, and take it, sprinkle it onto what you're already doing great. I promise you. So please make sure you check out our website. And also, if you'd love to contribute to our mission, check out our merch store, guys. We've got shirts, hats, sweaters. We've got all sorts of swag, and all of that goes back into our show so we can continue to bring you amazing conversations week in and week out. We appreciate all the likes, the shares, the follows. Make sure you follow us on all social media at My EdTech Live. And if you can, a special favor, please jump over to our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up and give us a like. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So I would definitely appreciate that from you as well. But my friends, like I said, until next time, don't forget, stay techie.